Well, brethren, on November 11th, Mr. Franks gave a sermon here in the north, and he went to a section in 2 Kings that reminded me of something that I had read before in another publication. Mr. Trividi also went to this section on the 16th of November, of this month. But it's part of my message today, so I need to go there. But I'll try to make it rather quick. I'll paraphrase most of what I want to say. So, 2 Kings 6, in verse 8. The king of Syria warred against Israel. Okay, that's the context here. And the man of God, who is Elisha, he was able to tell the king of Israel because God revealed to him the dreams of the king of Syria that he had in his bedchamber. So, not going into all the detail of how that occurred, but the king of Syria was not happy with that. So in verse 13, he said, let's go fetch him. Let's go get him. Okay, in 14, he sent a great host, and they encompassed the city. Verse 14, verse 15, and when the servant of the man of God, his servant, he was risen early in the morning, he looked out there and he said, I'll ask my master, what shall we do? In other words, he looked at all this and his word, as good as dead. This is terrible. And he answered and said, Elisha answered and said, fear not, for they that are with us are more than they that are with them. He saw something. He saw something. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray you open his eyes as well, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire around about Elisha, a complete angelic army. Doesn't Psalm 34:17 tell us the angel of the Lord encamps around about them that fear him and deliver him? You know, seeing this, though, must have been a totally amazing thing for that young man. I'm sure it gave him great comfort and a peace of mind that he hadn't had, or that he didn't have. I'd say this experience replaced a lot of his fear, realizing that the power of God and his angels were there all along. They were there all along, protecting him. Wouldn't that do the same thing for us? I'm sure it would. I'm sure it would. I believe this event is recorded to encourage us, because we're also surrounded by a determined enemy. But God and his angels are with us as well, watching over all of us. So today, brethren, I want to briefly discuss the reality of the angelic realm that we can't see, and the interventions on our behalf that we can see, and why this is important to us spiritually. As I mentioned, there was another publication. It's a British publication titled, We Have a Guardian, Instances of Divine Intervention. It's a British publication that chronicles the defeat of the Spanish Armada, miracle of Dunkirk, Battle of Britain, and many, many more. But one stands out. One really stands out in this. And that was the deliverance of the British during World War I due to the intervention of the White Cavalry. Now, you may have heard of that before. You may not. The White Cavalry. So I want to read that to you. I had to cut down parts of this because it's a little long, but I need to read this. It's very meaningful. In the spring of 1918, the Germans broke through the Allied line. At the focal point of the enemy's advance, Bethune, the Germans concentrated high explosive and machine gun fire. Suddenly, the enemy shell fire lifted and concentrated on a rise beyond the town. The ground there was absolutely bare. Yet enemy machine guns and shells raked it from end to end with a hail of lead. As suddenly as it started, the enemy's fire ceased. The dense line of German troops, which had started to move forward to victory in mass formation, halted dead. And the British watched and saw it break. The Germans threw down everything they had and fled in frantic panic. And here is a statement of a senior German officer who was taken prisoner immediately afterwards. Quote, the order had been given to advance in mass formation, and our troops were marching behind us, singing their way to victory, When Fritz, my lieutenant, said, "Herr Capitan, just look at that open ground behind Bethune. There is a brigade of cavalry coming through the smoke, drifting across it. They must be mad, those English, to advance against such a force as ours in the open. I suppose they must be cavalry of one of their colonial forces. For see, they are all in white uniform and are mounted on white horses." "Strange," I said. I have never heard of the English having any white uniform cavalry. They have all been fighting on foot several years, and they always wear khaki." "Well, they're in our plan enough. Our guns have got their range now, and they will be blown to bits." We saw the shells bursting among the horses and the riders, all of whom came forward at a quiet walk-trot in parade ground formation, each man and his horse in his exact place. Shortly afterwards, our machine guns opened a heavy fire, raking the advancing cavalry with a hail of lead. But on they came, and not a single man or horse fell. Steadily they advanced, clear in the shining sunlight, and a few paces in front of them rode their leader, a fine figure of a man whose hair, spun like gold, shone in an aura around his head. By his side was a great sword, but his hands lay quietly holding the reins as his huge white charger bore him proudly forward. In spite of heavy shell and concentrated machine gun fire, the white cavalry advanced. Then a great fear fell on me, and I turned to flee. Yes, I, an officer of the Prussian Guard, fled, panic-stricken, and around me were hundreds of terrified men, whimpering like children, throwing away their arms in order to not have their movements impeded. Their one desire was to get away from the advancing white cavalry, above all from their awe-inspiring leader whose hair shone like a golden halo. That's all I have to tell you. We're beaten. The German army is broken. End of quote. This was taken from an account of Staff Captain 1st Corps Intelligence, 1st British Army Headquarters in 1918, who was present and himself took down the statement from the German officer. And during the days that followed, many of the German prisoners verified that account themselves. So why does this stand out? Well, in none of the accounts in this book does it tell of God allowing men to actually see his angelic army, as was the case also with Elisha and his servant. I don't know of anybody who has seen his angelic army. In the defeat of the Spanish Armada, Dunkirk, Battle of Britain, all these activities, they only saw the results. But even then, from the results, they knew it was by divine intervention due to the sheer magnitude and the impossibility of what happened. They knew that. In the White Cavalry event, the Germans were overcome with fear because they actually saw these angels. But think of the amazement the British soldiers must have felt when they began to realize what had actually occurred. You got to remember, they didn't see anything. That hill was bare in their eyes. There was nothing up there. It must have given them tremendous courage and confidence to stay in the fight, even against the superior German army, knowing that a higher power was watching over them. Their fears must have been diminished greatly, I would think. This account is another example of God's presence and interventions that are real. It's not just the imaginations of men. It's a real thing. And even though we can't actually see the angels, they are an essential part of his plan, the watchful care of his future family. Hebrews 1:14, and I know you all know these scriptures, and I'm just reading them, says, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister, to serve and to help us, to them who shall be the heirs of salvation?" That's their job. I ask a question, have you ever seen an angel? Have you ever seen one? I'm sure nobody has. I'm sure nobody has. If you have, you might want to talk to the pastor about it, but I don't think you have. But maybe you have interacted with one you didn't realize it. Maybe you have. Hebrews 13:2 tells us, "Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware." Have you ever had an experience, though, where you believed an angel had intervened for you? Probably so. Probably so. Maybe not everyone, but you're probably right if that's probably what you think. Maybe God, by his angels, delivered you from a danger that you were totally unaware of. Or maybe a danger you were aware of, and you wondered, how am I going to get out of this? What do I do? I came across a story about a missionary who found himself in this type of a situation, and I'd like to read that to you as well. John Payton was a missionary to an island chain in the South Pacific. It's got a name, but I don't think anybody would know that name. It's an island chain in the South Pacific. He said that one night, wild natives surrounded his house, frantically dancing and jumping up and down in the jungle, desiring to kill John and his wife. They got on their knees, realizing that there was no way they could protect themselves against these wild cannibals, and they prayed. Soon after that, the attackers all vanished into the jungle. They're gone. According to Payton's biographer, a year later, the chief of the tribe became a Christian. And John asked him at that time, "What happened that night about a year ago when your natives surrounded our home and all of a sudden they left?" The chief said, "Well, because of all those men you had with you, we left." John said, "There were no men, just myself and my wife." The chief said they had seen men standing guard, hundreds of big men in shining clothes with swords in their hands, totally encircling your house. I believe God saw John Payton's willingness to give of himself and serve others, even in this dangerous situation. And God answered his prayers, just like he will answer our prayers if we're in any situation like that. I'll ask another question. Have you ever had a life-threatening situation? Have you ever had a life-threatening situation where you actually were scared for your life? Well, unfortunately, I've had two of those, and one was my own fault due to carelessness. But I believe an angel certainly must have intervened to spare my life. The other was beyond my control and caught me absolutely, totally off guard. And I want to convey that to you because it's in line with what I'm talking about. So I'll go back a couple years. In 1987, I was driving my little Honda Civic wagon to Kingwood for a real estate appointment. And on the inside lane, there was a car, and he had smoke coming out of his tailpipe, and he was slowing down. And all of a sudden, and I was second lane from the curb, and he pulls right out in front of me. And I got on my brakes. I didn't skid, but I got on my brakes, and I came right up to the back of him. I thought to myself, oh, fantastic, I didn't hit him. Boom! I got hit. That very instant that I thought I didn't hit him, I got hit. So I'm just sitting there going, what's going on here? So I kind of look up and I see sky. Wow. Through the roof. And all of a sudden this man runs over to the side of the car and he says, "Turn off your engine, get out." I said, "I can't get out." I was pushed up against the steering wheel. My feet were stuck up underneath the dash. He says, "Get out, get out." He scared the heck out of me. I thought the car was going to catch on fire and blow up. I really got scared. That guy reached through the window, grabbed me, and pulled me out. My shoes stayed there, pulled me right out of the car, and set me on the curb, facing away from my car. I didn't see it. And at that time, this lady runs up to me, and she starts wrapping this thing around my head. I didn't know what was going on. So apparently my ear was almost cut off. It was hanging. So she put it back up there and wrapped it. That's what they told me. And so when she left, So I kind of turned around. I was, kind of checking myself out, see what's broken or whatever. I turned around to tell her thank you, but she was gone. I don't know where she went. I don't know if she was an angel or not, but she helped me right there in the moment. The next thing, of course, I was just taken to the hospital, but I woke up about 5 hours later in the hospital bed, and it had a bandage on my head and everything. But I happened to wake up about 5 o'clock, and I was looking straight ahead, and there was a TV set. And my wife was there with my daughter, Vanessa, who was only 3 years old. And I looked at the TV and I go, look, that's my car. I saw there was a picture of this 18-wheeler and my little Honda Civic stuck together. And I just couldn't. But it was kind of far away, so I really couldn't see it that close. But it was my car. I couldn't believe it. So, brethren, why do I tell you this? Why do I tell you this? Because that accident showed me, it just showed me without a doubt that an angel was there that day, saved me. In a millisecond, that car was impacted and it would turn into a piece of junk. And it kept me from dying at age 35. God's protection was obviously physical, but I say it's spiritual as well, because I was not ready yet to be born spiritually. Simple. Just wasn't ready. Well, a little later, I don't know, days, weeks, whatever, my wife and I, we went to the junkyard. I wanted to see this car. And we needed to get some personal items. I had things in there. And I saw my car up close. Up close. And I could hardly believe what I was looking at. It was like an accordion. It looked like an accordion of crushed metal because that 18-wheeler hit above the bumper and just accordioned the car. The roof was right in the middle of my headrest. I mean, the absolute middle. It was resting. That would have, gone right through the center of my skull. I knew, by looking at that, an angel had to intervene, by the sheer magnitude and the impossibility of surviving this thing. I saw the result of the action, and the result was I was still alive. Psalm 91:11 tells us, "For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways." That's a promise to all of us. Well, brethren, all these stories that I've told you today, they really just show us the power of Christ and his angelic army. And they demonstrate the absolute commitment to his plan and to our calling. Our experiences, your experiences, my experience, the experiences of others, give us tremendous encouragement and confidence, knowing that we are never really alone. They are among us, and they don't have to sleep. They're among us. They're probably here today. Just think how encouraged the king of Israel must have been after he heard what Elisha told him. I'm sure that encouraged him as well. It's easy to forget that angels are around us because we can't physically see them, but we can see the results and thereby be assured and know that they're there. Hebrews 11:1, the faith chapter. First verse says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for," but it also says faith is the evidence of things not seen. It's the evidence. Through the spiritual lens of faith, we can see the interventions on our behalf for what they are, which can give us comfort and an inner peace, just like Philippians 4:7 says, "The peace which surpasses all understanding," knowing that God and his angels are present in our lives. One day, every eye will see Christ and his angels coming in the cloud of heaven. Until that happens, our guardian angel, our guardian and his angels are watching over us.